everyone. Thanks for joining me today for a lineup of wines for the Spirited Gourmet. My name is Celine and I am the Bordeaux Grand Cru Classé Portfolio Manager at Monsieur Touton Selection. We are an importer and distributor. So today, as you may have guessed, I'll be taking you through a lineup of Bordeaux wines. We'll be going through 2 whites and 3 reds that are great for this time of year. So starting off with just a few quick points about Bordeaux if you're not as familiar with it. So Bordeaux is the largest wine growing region in all of France with about 8,000 different estates and producers. So it can be a little daunting to find what you're looking for in Bordeaux, but there's really something for everyone, very different styles made from one area of Bordeaux to the next, and we'll kind of touch on that a little bit as we talk about the different appellations, subregions in Bordeaux. So to start off with the whites, white Bordeaux is maybe something you are less familiar with. It is typically some sort of a blend. There are certain grape varietals that are allowed to be used in Bordeaux. And typically the blend is predominantly Sauvignon Blanc, although other grape varietals that are often used can be Semillon, famous in the use of Sauterne, and Muscadelle, Sauvignon Gris, and a couple other white grape varietals that you can see sometimes in small percentages. For the reds, again, typically a blend. It's very rare that you'll see wines that are single varietal in Bordeaux, although it's certainly allowed and you can certainly find it. Typically there are 6 red grape varietals that are allowed, which includes Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, Petit Verdot, Malbec, and Carmenère. Although I will say that Carmenère is very rarely seen, and Malbec as well is something that you don't find very often in the blend. So I would say those first 4 are the ones you'll often see in red blends, depending where the wine is coming from within Bordeaux, and the style, the choice of the winemaker, the terroir that they have, etc., etc. So let's get started. The first white is called Jet de Guiraud. So Chateau Guiraud is actually an estate in Sauterne. So they typically produce sweet wines. This is their dry white wine though. Most Sauterne producers are making dry whites, and this is Chateau Guiraud. So they're a classified growth, first classified growth in the Sauterne appellation. And again, this is the dry white. It's a blend of Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon, 50-50 actually. And what's interesting here is that they actually age the wine in oak barrels and ex-Sauterne barrels. So it really gives this awesome complexity to the wine. Now it's not a sweet wine, it's still dry even though it's aged in old Sauterne barrels. What's interesting about this, if you haven't had a white Bordeaux or wine with Semillon in it, Sauvignon Blanc really brings that kind of like brightness, that freshness, the acidity, and then Semillon really brings out kind of this richness, almost this like waxiness. You have a fuller bodied wine, and then throw in the oak aging component. It spends about 7 months in oak with some time aging on the lees. You get this nice richness, nice complexity to the wine. I love this wine this time of year. I find it very versatile. It's a great wine for Thanksgiving dinner. You have that acidity that cuts through, but you also have, again, that kind of richness. Next up, another white. Chateau Chantegrive, and this is their special cuvée Caroline. So Chateau Chantegrive is coming from the Grave appellation, so we are on the left bank of Bordeaux, south of the city of Bordeaux, and the Grave appellation is known for its white wines. They produce a lot of reds, but they're specifically known for some great whites that they produce, and Chateau Chantegrive is one of those. Family-owned estate. The white here is actually has some Sauvignon Gris in it, so it's predominantly Semillon and Sauvignon Blanc with a small percentage of Sauvignon Gris. And same thing here, you have some oak aging, so you get this kind of this wine that has some freshness, but also kind of this counterbalance with the richness. What's different about this one, I would say, is that it has a little bit more of that minerality that's present. The Grave region for white wines and even reds, you tend to find a lot of this minerality coming through in the wines, and it's really beautiful. Another one of my favorites. Next up, so we are going to head over to the reds. We have Chateau Bourdieu. So this is coming from the right bank of Bordeaux in the Blaye appellation, Blaye Côte de Bordeaux, which you may not have heard of. It's on the same bank as Saint-Emilion, just a little bit further north. And there's some really cool stuff going on in this appellation. This is actually the appellation that produces the most amount of Malbec. As I mentioned earlier, Malbec is not something that we see very often anymore, but the Blaye appellation actually has some plantings of Malbec. There's actually 3% Malbec in this, but it's predominantly Merlot, about 90% Merlot, 8% Cab Sauvignon, and the rest is Malbec. This one, you're going to get some nice red fruit to it. It's very easy drinking. The tannins are soft. It's not something that you have to open way ahead of time and decant and wait to open up. It's very easy drinking, ready to go. Next up, and I would say kind of a step up in terms of flavor profile and appellation. So this is Chateau du Basque. It's from Saint-Emilion, and it's a Grand Cru. So this is kind of a superior level than just Saint-Emilion. Here you're on 85% Merlot and 15% Cabernet Franc. This is typical, I should have mentioned earlier, on the right bank of Bordeaux, where this wine and Chateau Bourdieu are located. The soils are much more conducive to Merlot, so typically you'll find heavier Merlot percentages in the blend. So Chateau Bourdieu, again, family owned, 95 points decanter too. I think you have it on the sticker there. Here you're going to have, again, kind of those red fruits, but you're going to have a little bit more tannin structure. You're also going to have a little bit more richness, a little bit more of a plummy note to it. But this is a great, great food wine. And last but not least, Chateau Sénéjac. So now we are headed over to the left bank of Bordeaux in Haut-Médoc appellation. Left bank of Bordeaux, because of the soils that are located there, you tend to have more Cabernet Sauvignon in the blends, and that's the case with this wine. So Haut-Médoc appellation, again, left bank, you're very close to the Margaux appellation, where this winery is specifically located, very close to Margaux. The blend here is 51% Cabernet Sauvignon, 36 Merlot, 9 Cab Franc, and 4% Petit Verdot. So you basically have 4 of the 6 allowed grape varietals. The property is owned by the same family that owns Chateau Talbot, which is a classified growth in the Saint-Julien appellation, also on the left bank. And they've owned this property since the late 90s. This wine, I would say, would be kind of the most structured, the biggest of them all. You're going to have a little bit more of that spice note too, which is brought on by the Petit Verdot. But I tasted this wine recently, and this says 15, but you guys will have the 16 vintage. I tasted it recently, and the wine's drinking beautifully. You definitely have those tannins. You have a little bit of the spice note, but the fruit is definitely there. The wine is showing really, really lovely. I think all of these wines presented today are great for this time of year when it gets a little bit more chilly and we're eating slightly heavier meals as the weather gets colder. So I hope you guys enjoyed the lineup. I hope you get to taste each of these wines, bring it home, share it with your friends and family, and enjoy them.